day, that is good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all our viewers out there, and welcome to this special edition of the TIHA Archival Conversations brought to you by Trans and Intersex History Africa website. Of course, ours is a dedication to collecting, to finding, to documenting, to protecting, to archiving the history of trans and intersex people in Africa, on the continent, but also in the diaspora. My name is Victor Mukasa. Today, I am not alone as your host. I have a co-host, Lizo Theron, a member of my team. Hi, Lizo. Say hi to the viewers.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Victor and everyone else. I'm so glad to be today your co-host. Let's see where this day takes us.
So yes, fam, like I said earlier on, it is a special edition of the Archival Conversations, and it is the International Day Against Homophobia, Biphobia, Interphobia, and Transphobia, and that is tomorrow. Just here on on TIHA, we are coming in before. First of all, because we are so excited to celebrate. Secondly, because we want our communities that we reach to be able to remember and to prepare to just find a moment tomorrow on May 17th to do something. So we are going to join tomorrow millions of people around the world, queer communities around the world, allies around the world, to celebrate this, to mark this day. Of course, it comes with a lot of celebrations. It comes with a lot of memories that are not the best, but it is a day for us to 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 uh, to focus on. And of course, in celebrating it this time, we are going to be talking about the theme for this year's day. IDAHOBIT is the power of community. But before we dive into the power of community and the theme for this year's IDAHOBIT, I would like to check in with Lizo first before we bring in anybody. And also those who are viewing, please feel free to join us. You're going to have the link in your comment sections where you're watching from. Being a special edition and power of communities, we're going to have our community with us in the studio to have a conversation around this. But before we proceed, and I hope studio is actually putting that link out there, I would like Lizo to start with you. Why IDAHOBIT, International Day Against Those Phobias? Why May 17th? What is the story behind that? Because I think every year somebody gets to understand it for the first time.
And you are actually so correct, Victor. Because many times we who are activists for a much longer time, we think, but we spoke about this thing so much, whatever the topic is, right?
Yeah.
But you are right. There are always newer and younger generations coming out or learning about things. So we have to repeat things, and especially important historical facts.
Right.
So I agree with you. Let's start. So the 17th of May as a specific date.
Yeah.
Chosen for the IDAHOBIT because it was in 1990. So this is very long ago already, right?
Yes.
And in certain terms, not long ago. It depends like how you look at the date, right? So on 17 May of the year 1990, homosexuality as a term in those times, it was not including intersex and transsexual and all of the other.
It was just Idaho.
It was just Idaho, and Idaho in the beginning years started using 17 May as a celebration because in 17 May 1990, homosexuality as a term, as a condition, I put it really with my hands in inverted commas, homosexuality was removed from the WHO, which is the World Health Organization,
right,
classification of diseases. So up until 17 May of 1990, and that's why I say, at first when I said 1990, it sounds so far away, but actually until as recent, it really depends how you look at the dates, right?
Yeah.
Or the context of it. So
I believe when I was 15 years,
as 1990, I mean, We have community members that was born before or after 1990. But in 1990 only, it was removed. Imagine all people who identify as LGBTI TTT was classified as a disease.
Yes.
And 17 May of that year, it was removed.
And it means those of us who were alive prior to 1990, we were seen as sick people, according
to exactly, mentally sick
standard.
Yes. So that is then the real reason why 17 May is such a, as such, is such an important marker that we should never forget.
And we can never forget. And I mean, for a lot of people who were born before that, what the pastors and doctors and homophobic doctors and transphobic doctors said about their lives, they believed. And it's so interesting, Lizo, that a lot of people will not believe such a report and such a change in the report. Before, they trusted scientists to say that this is a disease.
Exactly.
And then they didn't trust these scientists after that when they said, no, it is not a disease. This is what it is. Like, it's so ironical.
As you said, double standard. That's literally a double standard.
A double standard. The same World Health Organization that will say something about a pandemic or an epidemic in our countries, and we will believe them because we trust them. Is the same World Health Organization that will say, no, we remove homosexuality from this category. It is not an illness, and we refuse to believe that from the same source. Indeed, it is a double standard. But I think that for queer people who didn't know out there, that was a very good and easy explanation of why we have May 17th. And if you are in the comment section there listening to us, feel free to come in with the link that is in your comment section, and you can join us in the studio and we discuss more about that May 17th and more that is coming during this show. Now, Lizo, this year's theme is the power of community. And power of community, when I saw that theme, I thought, wow, like these are things that sometimes we don't think about. We are so busy fighting on, and we don't see what the fuel is. We don't see what the motivation is. What do you understand by community? Like, is it just the little community that I know, the little community in my village? Is it my neighbor? Like, for you, like, we are going to discuss, I'll tell you what mine means, but I would like to hear what you understand by community before we dive into the power of that community.
I think community have obviously different meanings for different people. And also, again, I'm always that one that say the context matters so much, right?
Yes.
For example, the building where I live in, I would imagine to say it's a small building. So I would say we are a community because if there's a crisis, the one neighbor will help the other neighbor out. We even have a WhatsApp group. So in that sense, this is a community, right?
Right.
But so I would say trans and intersex people, and today we're going to focus on that. That's always our focus of the website. However, we obviously don't exclude LGBT, and many trans or intersex people are also identifying as lesbian, bi, bisexual, the whole range. So really, but for our purposes, let's talk about trans and intersex. So you might live somewhere in isolation, if I can call it that way, where you don't have in your close proximity other people that identify and feel the same as you. Yeah. But you can still have community because there's something, and in nowadays of today, we speak of an online community. So either in various type of WhatsApp groups or internet, like other examples in Facebook, wherever, our group itself as well, for example, is an online community. Mm-hmm. And that's why we always try to make sure we are here on Fridays, because we know there are community members waiting. Whether they actually have in-person contact and people with them, you know, sharing the same causes and ideas and questions and activism even.
Yeah.
But we also have community members that are living in fairly isolated situations over a
Talk
whole
about
range.
community.
So
We might have a
community,
better connection where we are, you in Mexico and me in the United States. I see community coming in from Africa, and I think that
yes,
we should give them that quick priority in case
I think so.
uh,
Yes,
their
yes.
internet disconnects. Who do we have here? Emalia. Emalia, do you want to introduce yourself to the viewers?
All right, thank you so much, Victor. And Liz, I'm really so happy to finally meet you here. I really love the topic. I love IDAHOBIT. I love celebrating IDAHOBIT. And yeah, I'm Imalia, and I'm now in Kenya, a refugee. I'm a transgender woman, and I've been working and serving the transgender movement for the past 8 years back in Uganda, and still here. I'm also doing the same work,
Yeah.
serving the queer refugees. Thank you so much.
That's amazing. Amazing. Thank you for the work that you continue to do. I actually thought that you were still in Uganda. Uh, I know that sometimes we are not able to keep in touch with community, but here we are now. And I wanted to ask you, just in case something happens to your internet, Emalia, I don't bet what is happening in Kenya today in your community about IDAHOBIT. But beyond that, if nothing is happening communally, what does community, queer community, mean to you? As
When you talk
trans
about
people,
queer
as a
community,
trans person and trans people in Kenya, you know, have you built communities for yourself? Does community exist in Kenya for trans refugees, LGBT refugees, but most especially trans and intersex refugees today?
yeah, thank you so much for that question. There is a lot of the queer organizing and the queer community. Basically, when it comes to the refugee movement, sorry, to the trans queer movement,
Yes.
the movement is really, really so growing, and uh, we've of late we now having several trans refugee organizations in Kenya, being that there is a lot that is happening in Kenya when it comes to specifically trans refugees. And then we're trying to see that we can build movements, we can form platforms and safe places whereby we feel like our trans persons and individuals are safe to a certain extent. However, it's so trying, you know that. But
Yeah.
we're really trying to do our level best to see that we have a vibrant movement in Kenya. However much we just refugees and we foreigners and so on, we're just trying to see that we blend into the host community and mostly the trans queer host community in Kenya. Besides that, the movement is really, really going on very well. We're trying to see that we try to uh, make ends meet when it comes to security, when it comes to nutritional support, when it comes to well-being of the queer trans movement. And like this month, but specifically, we've been much into mental health awareness.
Yeah.
And we know when it comes to our mental wellness, we really not have access to that. So we're trying to see that we could at least try to bring people together,
Right.
discuss about certain issues, uh, like come as a family, be in harmony,
Yes.
and try to share to see that at least we could build uh, confidence. We can build. We can feel safe. Know that we're not only the refugees or maybe displaced somewhere, but then we have a community who is like there to support us. Who is the community that is there to to feel like we're at home, to feel like we have siblings still in Kenya. Yeah. So
So
basically,
that
when it comes
community
to the
is like
trans,
support to you. Like the
sorry.
community you're building is like support. It is support to to the members of the small community that you have.
Yes. Basically, specifically, that's what we're doing. We're trying to see that we try to build on the movement, and by doing so, we're also trying so much to see that we try to blend in with the host community, not only the Kenyans as at large, but specifically the trans queer community that is hosting us in Kenya. We try to see that we blend in. We try to see that we move along with them. We try to see that we try to be a uniform, we have a uniform voice. Besides that, we refugees or something, but we all transgender persons, we all transgender community, and we siblings. That is, to me, it matters a lot. You being, I know that I have a sibling who is a Kenyan and that's a trans fella and so on. You know, that love, that belonging. We're trying to see that we build that belonging.
I want to ask you something, Amalia. If you,
Yes.
the trans and intersex refugees in Kenya, if you decided that you did things differently, that you each fought, like if you each there's a saying in Luganda that says everyone, and I think it's also in English, everyone for himself, God for us all, that you did not come together as trans people together to do what you're talking about right now, how do you imagine life would have been? Like you all land in Kenya and on your own you start looking for documents on your own, you start to, how would life, let's just paint that picture without community, just to see how community is how important community is. I kind of imagine
basically, maybe I can give. Yeah, let me first give maybe my personal experience when I came to Kenya, because me coming to Kenya, actually, this is what really drives me to see that we have a community. Because when I came to Kenya, I didn't know anyone, I didn't know any community, I didn't know any person, and it was a struggle for me when it came to documentation, because I even don't know places around. I didn't know where UNHRC is, offices are. Like I really struggled, and I almost thought of going back to the country where I was persecuted. But then in doing so, I was like, no, I was determined and I'm not going back to the country. I love my life, and it also comes back to determination as a person or as an individual. So me imagining my life without not connecting with my queer, trans, and intersex community, it would have been a mess. Actually, I think maybe I would have even committed suicide, because you come to a country where you're a foreigner, you don't know anyone, you don't speak the language, like you totally green about everything.
Right.
And then there is that trauma. I faced a lot of trauma. I faced a lot of. I used actually even to isolate myself, not even going out. I could fear the roads, the people, the road. You know that the community is also so hostile as well.
Right.
So us being an individual coming to maybe Kenya specifically, because it's my first country to seek asylum from and to live for a long time, it really it will really torture that person, because you don't know anything. You don't know where to start from, you don't know where you're going, you don't know whatsoever. So I think building the movements, and then also uniting, and then becoming a family, it builds a lot to an individual, to an intersex person, to a transgender person who comes to seek for asylum, whereby, because there are people who have been here for long and they know places, they can guide you on what you should do, how you should behave, how you should talk to people, how you understand certain basic things on how you should address yourself when you're into a different like a new community. So I think I can't even imagine me being in Kenya for all this long without not like engaging with the community or with my fellow trans queer movement. So it will be a terrible nightmare that even I don't want to think about, because then I've seen people who are coming here and then they're like, oh, I reached here a few months ago and I really didn't know anyone, but because I couldn't stand my country, I was I was ABCD, I was done ABCD and so on. And then I've struggled for this year to get
Yes, Amalia. It looks like the internet is acting up there. Those who are viewing, please let us know if you can still see us, if you're able to see us still. Studio, please advise us on what is happening. Are we still online?
going there. Maybe I'm going to have a different life from from my country, from my homeland, and then reaching here, you don't know anyone. Like you had your imaginations, and they're like your life is shattered. You understand?
Yeah.
So it becomes a challenging issue, and with people who are always like tell me, oh, Malia, I want to come to Kenya, I want to seek asylum, I want to do everything. I'm going through a lot and so on. I always advise them accordingly. And then I'm like, if you're coming to Kenya, make sure you're so ready. And then no one is pushing you, no one is forcing you to come because they are lying to you or something. You understand? We can come to here because of peer pressure. Someone is like, oh, I'm so good. You have ABCD, you love this life. And then you reach and it's totally the other way around, and then you start regretting. You understand?
So
So
in
I
other
always
words, Amalia,
advise to them to always reach to people, not only a malia or an individual, but a collective of people, whereby you get different ideas before you make a decision of living with it.
wonderful. Wonderful. Thank
Yes.
you so much for sharing that. Do you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Hello.
I think Amalia
No, for
has
Amalia.
internet. Ah,
Yeah, I
Amalia.
can hear you now.
Oh, yeah. So basically, what you're saying is that
Yes,
community,
Victor, I can hear you.
yeah, what you're saying is that community provides support, provides a support system for people. Are there other, do you have any story where it is because of community that you either succeeded or failed?
I won't say I've failed because first
No,
of all,
yeah,
from
it
from
could be a success or a challenge that
yes,
arose out of
yes.
that. But
Mhm.
is there any specific story where you see that the community coming together, people coming together into
Mm.
community, actually led to your or our success, or led to the backlash, or led to the problem, meaning a positive or
Mhm.
a negative?
Um, um,
Oh,
with
so good to
let me
hear.
just stick on
It
the
will
positive
find you,
ones.
Mr. Katiti. And if you're able to join us, Katiti, please feel free to click on the link and come into the studio. It is IDAHOBIT, and we are discussing the power of community. There's been a lot of organizing in the diaspora, especially in Alberta. You could have very good stories about community and the power of that. Yes, go on, Emalia.
So I'll just focus more on the positive because I always don't want to talk about negative things because they always break me down or actually I even just cry.
Sure.
So when we talk, actually I love that theme for this year,
Yeah,
the power the power of the movement of the community something.
of community.
I really like it because when I reflect back on it shows me that yes, there is we've moved a mile, and we're really contributing something, and we're doing something for the community because because of the community. I personally in Malia have managed to thrive. I've managed to build movements. I've managed to build people. People are now recognizing me. People are like, oh, there is ABCD or Emalia is there because it's of the movement, not because of Emalia is an expert in when it comes to transgender issues or whatsoever, or counseling and so on, but because the movement has built me. The Kenyan movement, my fellow trans queer people that I met here, they have built me, and then I'm now into the movement. Uh, a lot of people approach me. That is a tick for me because it's not easy for someone to just trust you. But
Right.
then people just say, "Oh, there is Emalia. Oh, Emalia is good," and so on. So it has really it makes me feel really so good. However much, yes, there are some challenges, there are some negativity and so on, but then at least then I felt to reach out to people. I'll reach out to people and they will listen to me. If any help is needed, they will render if it's available. So the movement has really built a lot of people, and it's really so very fine, and always encourage people. At times, yes, we feel like we have the potential. We feel like we can do things at our own, but sometimes we cannot.
Right.
Because
Right.
me
Need
personally,
each
when I
other.
came to Kenya, I was like, sorry, yeah, we really need each other in our lives. Because when I came to Kenya, yes, I was like, I'm not that doing bad. I can maybe start up, own my a 1 bedroom house, move with my life, and so on. And then, but then it reached a moment, and I was like really losing everything, losing it all, losing my mind. I couldn't like even walk on the streets. I was in a fear. You understand?
Mm.
But when we engage with people, when we engage with our community, there is that power. We feel like we empowered actually. We feel like we belong somewhere. We feel like yes, Emalia, yes, is a refugee, is whatsoever, but because of the spirit of sisterhood, brotherhood, you feel like, oh, I'm not alone. There is someone who is there. There's someone I can talk to. You understand? So
Right.
the movement, the Kenyan movement, or the queer, trans and intersex movement, in Kenya, it has really helped me to build up my, should I call it momentum or something, to build up myself again and again. And I was doing fine, maybe when it comes to advocacy, when it comes to that trans organizing back in Uganda, yes, I was doing very nice. But then here it's like I've opened up more and more, and I've gained a lot of experience on how to deal with different people, different diversities, and different intersectionality, and so on. So it's an adapt for me, and it's an achievement at least.
That's community. Community brings that growth, a positive out of community.
Hello,
You're growing out of, working with your community.
hello, Victor.
Uh, I don't know what is
Hmm.
happening. Emalia, it might be your internet over there. Do you hear us now, Emalia? You hear me?
Yes, but you breaking. I don't know why. Maybe I think it should be the network, but you breaking, you on and off.
It must be a network trying to break this community, but I think that
Mm.
we will protest that and continue with our conversation about community. And I thank you so much for sharing those bits of your life. I would like also Lizzo to come in. I think I would like to hear about Lizzo's experience with community. Any story you have about community, a story in the opposite, or I mean in the positive or negative, because sometimes things don't go as planned. We want to explore community from all angles and the
Yes,
power of community.
yes, Victor, definitely. I remember way back one example, and here in this case, I won't delve too much into the details of the negative, but this is one example when there was not a community in a local setting and what
Uh,
happened. So I
mm,
can share a story like that. As I say,
please
since
share it.
since Emalia said the tone for us, like, let's not go too much into the negative, so I won't give so much details, but the
Okay.
example, I remember back in 2009. In that year, I was still working at Gender Dynamics, and you were still working at what was then in the history known as Eagleherk. Today it's known as Outright International. So
Right.
the two of us had those two different positions, both based in Cape Town in our different offices.
Yes.
And in 2009, somebody very, very close to Gender Dynamics text me and say there's a huge, if you can call it literally, scandal happening in Tanzania. This
Mhm.
person who tipped me off, of the event, has a medical background and is in a medical chat group, some other type of a group online. I can't remember if we really had such strong WhatsApp groups. Maybe it was I don't know. There was an online group, and this person was part of that. And it is a group based in Tanzania in the medical profession. So it's other doctors, nurses. It's really medical people.
Right.
So the story unfolded that a trans woman by the name of Auntie Victoria took poison to commit suicide. This was in 2009. And coincidentally, I suppose not her knowing actually that 17 May had a significant date, exactly IDAHOBIT, she actually took the poison on the 17th of May. She was then eventually, she was first taken to one hospital and not wanted to be supported by the hospital because of the incongruity with her body. They didn't accept this patient. And then they had to take her to another hospital. So that on its own is already, we spoke here today, it's the International Day Against Transphobia, Homophobia, Intersex phobia. So this was basically due to transphobia that the first hospital that was closest didn't want to accept her as a patient. So she was eventually then taken to another hospital. There, I think on arrival to the first even, I think she was already unconscious. We don't know that part of the story, but she was definitely already unconscious or in a coma. She was then in the second hospital, and there, being in a coma, somebody, it was never revealed who, somebody lifted the bed sheets and took photos of her body and started circulating. And it became like what we have today, memes, but in those years, in 2009, there wasn't already memes. But it was that type of online mockery in this closed medical group. So then so the person found to report this to me, Gender Dynamics, and in those years, Gender Dynamics worked regionally, but not had such strong roots within each different country and all of that. So I reached out to you at your time being at Egelhurg, which is
at Egelhurg.
Yes. Yeah. So then obviously, as from there on, yourself lead a little bit more on the things, but so as far as I can recall, it was only 3 days later when she passed, but the whole time her body was upheld in that local community, medical community, call it that way rather, as a spectacle. And then obviously due to this evolving scandal, and obviously it got into the media, as we can imagine, that is type of headlines that sell newspapers. So the family didn't want to come to identify the body because then they would be linked to this scandal that's happening already on a public platform. So the morgue eventually decided, since no one wants to identify the body, we will open the morgue that people can come and see who can. But then it became yet another spectacle because people lined up, not with the purpose to identify her, that the proceedings of a burial can happen, but literally as part of this spectacle and mockery. So
to mock the body.
The body and the being of a person, right? The being of a trans person. Because she did manage to surgically transition. She went to Europe. She had means to surgically transition. So therefore, because when you're alive and you identify, but you didn't surgically, then it's just a body. But in this case, her body was now evidence of her identity that she could speak about when she was speaking. So it really became quite a big thing. And I don't know if you can remember much of that story. If you want to share then from your part onwards.
I think that
the advocacy that was done. But my point is to show that in that moment, there was not community to support.
Right. There was no community to carry on with even any investigation, or for other trans people who are traumatized wherever they are to come together and hold each other.
Exactly. There was no sense of community. Because in that moment, in 2009, as far as I can remember, I don't know by name, but I think there was only LGBT organizations or gay organizations. There was not trans
In fact, at
organizations.
that point, there were only two organizations: Talesa, a lesbian organization, and one men's organization.
So a lesbian organization and a gay organization.
Yes.
Which means there was not a trans community that, number one, understood this, that really have understanding of the nuance of what is happening here, or to support each other. And clearly, Auntie Victoria was not the only trans person in Tanzania alive. We all know throughout the whole world, there's never only one trans person in the country. It's not.
It's just very, very
isolated, a lack of community. That's exactly what. So here is the opposite story. That was lack of community, right from her feeling lonely.
Yeah.
From us as activists who try to support, and the lesbian organization and gay organizations say, even in their own terms, they were in their founding and emerging years, they didn't feel, even in their circles, ready, should there be a backlash towards them if they took up the step of doing advocacy.
I believe actually community has evolved, and with this internet that we have, social media, we've been able to build communities that even people who do not have really the very exact community that might be required in a certain situation somehow manage to connect with community elsewhere. And even if that community is far, that community is so near because they're able to hug you virtually, they're able to speak to you, they are able to comfort you, they are able to carry you with them forward. See, exactly. I remember, for example, the story of Tiwonge in Malawi. Again in the late 2000s, trans woman got married to a gay man, and they were arrested and imprisoned in Blantyre and Malawi. I know that I went there on a mission for work, and there was no trans organizing in Malawi. But this community also knew that trans people are a part of them, even if they didn't know how to support trans people. But because of the fact that we can connect more easily today via the internet, they knew which people to reach out to. I'm sure they reached out to Gender Dynamics, they reached out to Ego Hack, of course, and that's how I ended up going on behalf of my organization. But trans communities across the world actually got very interested in this case, that at some point we started collecting and encouraging letters to jail, to the prison, and trans people across the world actually wrote letters of support as part of her community.
You are right. So an international community stepped in when there was not enough nuanced context, because in those years, in 2010, when 2012, when these things happened with Tiwonge, for example, at that stage, it was 2010. At that stage, at the office, and you remember him very well, Robert Hamlin was there, and he did all our leading on journalist work, media work. Those years you would have much stronger used the word journalist, because there was not this strong social media platform, so you almost thought more in lines of journalism, right?
Yeah.
And because he was also a professional journalist photographer, so he was much closer to the way. So one of the things that Gender Dynamics did, and it collabed with the very first exchange program that took place in Namibia. So therefore we had 16 trans activists from across the region, and we focused about it, and all of us pointed out very soon the problem. There was quite a few problems in that case of Tiwonge, but one of the biggest problems was it was in the gay media taken up, and it was being posted as a same-sex marriage, and that is in the country, in the local community. That's why I said to you earlier, we speak of different types of communities here, right? The local community, both a community as a Malawian people, as well as in the LGBT community, there was not the existence of same-sex marriage, gay marriages in Malawi. So this was very, very for sure when Western media got it wrong and pushed a Western thinking into a local community, and that was causing Tewonge's problem.
More problems.
Because remember that whole ceremony that they had, it was at the place of her work. She was working in the hospitality industry, like at the place with chalets or camps or accommodations, you know, like a safari place, right? So her place was giving the location where they could have the celebration. So her workplace was fine with this.
Yes.
The local Malawian people was fine with it until it got labeled as something completely different. But I want us to jump from here, Victor, because I don't want us today only to focus. Yes, we have to bring the history forward, but I don't want us to only have negative stories. I think you might be able to share with us something that happened in Uganda where you could feel the power of community.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes, let's have a positive story in our last 20 minutes.
I think that for me, first of all, my journey as an individual has been supported by community. Like community is very important to me because that's where I have chosen my family to come from. That's where I've chosen my friends to come from. Like my life is about queer community and small queer communities here and there, depending on what we are focusing on. But it does not only end in my personal life, but in the movement also, as we were building the movement in the past. I believe today too, but I'm talking about the experience of the past. Is when I together with another colleague from Kenya sued the Ugandan government for violation of human rights and rights to privacy and all that when they raided my house in Uganda. When I sued the Ugandan government, when I declared to sue, there was indeed, we have somebody coming up here. I'll put you on stage, Chris, and we'll have you very soon. And when I declared to sue the Ugandan government in 2005, even the community, the LGBT community, had fear, was scared, was like, what is he talking about? Very few people like Kasha Jacqueline got it immediately. that one is a comrade out there, the bigger CEO Kasha. Yeah, got it immediately. But my local community initially was like, what the fuck? Excuse my Japanese, but what is he talking about? Like, what how dare he think that he can sue the Ugandan government? And it at some point for months, this was a case that hovered over my head and over Oyu's head alone with internationals, and it didn't feel like a good case without the Ugandan LGBT community. And I remember eventually, to cut the long story short, I had to come up with a strategy together with my strategists, a strategy to sell the case to the Ugandan community and make it a case of the community, because indeed it was a case of the community. It was not the first time that the Ugandan government was raiding my spaces. It was not the first time they were undressing us to check whether we are men or women. It was not the first time they were beating us up, but I was using it to advance the cause of the Ugandan LGBTI community, litigation for policy and legal reform. But the community took a little bit longer to get it. But I knew the power of community. I knew what comes of community, that even those lonely nights, all I needed were my people. And my people were not there to be seen. The international community was hiding me in these very safe places because there was government surveillance. So eventually, we organized to sell this court case to the community so that the community can own it. In fact, at first it was Victor and Oyo's case. Over and say, community, this is your case. The community actually labeled it the first LGBTQI plus human rights case. And that is how it was labeled. But Victor and Oyo against the Attorney General of Uganda. But it was labeled the Uganda LGBT human rights case. And that means the community actually embraced it. If you see the pictures and videos from that first LGBT human rights case in Uganda, you can see the courts, the High Court is filled with LGBT people. My safety team was made of LGBT people eventually, from some foreign people to LGBT people who understood my language, who understood how I felt, who knew how to hold me when I felt certain ways, when Oyo was breaking down. So the community rose up in unison and we held each other as a community and went forward. And that is why many times I was reading somewhere and I saw that there's where community, the power of community is seen as a protest. Community is seen as a sanctuary, like what we have been talking now. And community is seen as our power. It is indeed true. And at that point, community showed up as a protest in the Ugandan courts of law. And it gave a lot of hype to this case that the judges could not just take it lightly and throw it away. But it was that same case that encouraged other LGBT people, which was one of our the things that the aims for me declaring to sue, was to ensure that LGBT people know that they are Ugandan and that they are entitled to go to the courts of law to seek justice. Indeed, more cases came along, but the community held this together, and we see community holding it together with the other cases also, and with so many other campaigns that came after that, including the Let Us Live in Peace campaign, which was the first press conference in Uganda for LGBT people. And I saw that I wouldn't have stood there as an individual and said, okay, now I'm going to lead the Let Us Live in Peace campaign. Coaches would not come because they were not a part of it. They wouldn't have been a part of it, just to make an announcement at night and say, coaches, please come to the court. Tomorrow we have a hearing. Hello, it has to be a community. There has to be communication, love, care, holding each other. That way we can stand together whenever there is a challenge. We can celebrate together whenever there is a call to celebrate, but we can stand up also together to protest as a form of protest. So for me, I got all the advantages of community, all the lessons of having community from that LGBT human rights case when it happened and when the community came together as one and held each other. It is a long story that I could tell for long, but that is the short version. Yes, thank you so
Victor,
much.
Victor, when you talk about the community, I remember the first time we met. That was my first time me meeting you and actually meeting the community. That was 2013, actually, yes. And surprisingly, we're also celebrating IDAHOBIT. I don't know if you're still remembering that at MAPI Network.
I might not have
So
been.
it was my first. Sorry?
I might not have been there.
You were there. We were
In
there.
2019, I was in the United States, but maybe we met sometimes years, kind of.
By 2013, you were in Uganda.
I left Uganda in 2012,
Or
but it's fine. Give that. Yeah.
yeah, and then I met the community, and then at times I always say that the community also attributes a lot to what we can potentially do. And then when Cleo, my favorite friend, my good sister, and then other community members saw me and they're like, oh, Emalia, you have potential. Emalia, you can do ABCD. Emalia, you can influence change. You can contribute something to this community. Please
Yeah.
come in, engage with the community and so on. So the community gives the community gave me power. The community gave me courage and a
What?
standing point to
Yes.
see that the trans movement is really moving, and to see that I can contribute within my power something to the Ugandan trans
Do that.
movement. So it's always back to the community. It's always
Pushed
the
it
community.
forward.
Yeah,
Encouraged
yeah.
you, held you. Thank you so much,
Mhm.
Alia. My brother Chris
Okay.
Katiti, welcome to the show. Katiti, you can speak from the perspective of Uganda, from the perspective of Alberta in Canada. You are a community man, and you're the right person to actually share with us today also about your experience with community. The power of community is the theme for this year's IDAHOBIT. And we're just here, just unpacking this and that about community, and how trans people and how we have built our communities or not built our communities, or what we need to do or what we did in the past. It is the mic is yours, Chris.
Thank you. You can hear me well?
Yes, you're very
Yes.
clear.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you to all the contributors. Good to see you, Emalia. Yeah, so first of all, I was on, when you started, but
Yes,
I don't want to forget. I think I have a few things that I can highlight, but there is one
please.
thing I really that bore me here is whenever that I want to highlight that whenever we show up, we carry communities within ourselves,
Wonderful.
right? So when
Yes.
someone sees me, sometimes, often the time, they think they're just seeing me at the bio.
Yeah. Yeah.
Forget that I carry communities within me, you know.
Right.
I
Tell us more.
carry my ancestors' voices within me, you know.
Yes.
That is a whole community that I show up with. So when I show up, I always like people to know that I am not by myself. I carry communities of people who love me, people who care for me, of people I work with in any space I show up in. And I think that is the unknown power of community that is
Mm-hmm.
always highlighted.
Mm-hmm.
And then we often the time forget, even within our own self, when we are living, like we think we are loners, we are lonely, we don't have people care for us. But yet, us ourselves being present, being there, we are literally communities. We are carrying communities within our lives,
Yes.
within ourselves. So I wanted to highlight that piece first.
Yes.
Now the
Very
other
important.
Mhm. The other part is the fact that we live in communities that get targeted,
Mm.
get singled out, get
Mm-hmm.
isolated, that people make policies, based on ideologies of our communities,
Mm.
and they don't live, or they don't know how we survive, or how we live, or how we treat ourselves. They are
Mm.
absent in our existence, but then make
Mm.
laws that target our existence. Is it because they are scared? Is it because they are worried that this is something outside of the normative, that our communities are being labeled outside of the normative?
Mm.
They don't know how to treat us. That is the other part. As a trans person, I really lean a lot more within the trans communities.
Mm.
Like, as a trans individual, even when you transition, you come out, we're ourselves. Maybe our family disown us. Maybe after 10 years, maybe you've been able to stand ground on your feet. They were playing, you will not succeed, you will not go anywhere. And now you are here succeeding. Now
Mm.
come back in your life. Often the time they don't know how to treat us. They don't know how to talk to us. They
Yes.
don't know how to be around us. So I think those are parts of the negative impact when it comes to, we have to continuously educate people, and
Yeah.
yet should not be able, we shouldn't. People should be able to educate themselves. But we have to continuously educate them because of the attachments that we have with them. We think we should educate. And when we don't, then they misgender us, they dead name us.
Yeah.
And that take a toll on our existence, on our lives, right? They don't know the impact it takes to be ourselves, to find communities, to find people we relate to confine in those spaces that we have built. Often the time they disown us, kick us out, thinking we will never succeed, thinking we can't go anywhere, thinking we will go back and beg them.
Beg.
Yeah.
Right.
So those
Yeah.
are pieces, but personally,
Pieces and pieces of community. I just see you, like I've just known you all my life, the time that I've been engaging with you as a community guy and a guy who likes to support community. You believe in community. Tell us a little bit more about where that energy of community is taking your work and the work of Rarika now. How it is pushing it forward, how it is helping for you as an individual, but also the Rarika Now, your organization, to
thank
make
you.
strides that you're making.
Thank you, Victor.
Yeah.
One of the things is we can't exist without community, you know?
Right.
So yes, if there is no community, we cease to exist, right? Community is a pillar of our humanity and our existence. So
Right.
I'm just grateful to be a part of the people who build movement, who are building movement, who are creating intentional brave spaces for other people, right? So like at Radika, part of we talk about the housing initiative that we currently have. We just recently opened our housing initiative for Black, trans, and twice LGBTQ refugees and newcomers, right?
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You know, and that comes from the need of, you know, belonging, you know, the need of having people where we don't have to mask, we don't have to hide who we are, you know, for us to have a roof on our head, for us to have access to resources, for us to be our authentic selves, you know, which is a threat to a lot of other people in other communities, you know. So that being said is I often, even when I do my own work, you know, outside Radika, I find myself doing work, community work. You can give an example. There's some funding I was trying to apply, personal funding. But then the way I was applying, it was a community, you know, community. So the funders are like, no, this is an individual grant and it has to be. So, and so they literally had a meeting with me that it has to be an individual grant. If I did the work again, but it was still community. So they're like, we want you to be able to write it as your own. And I'm like, so selfish? Like, you want me to be selfish? Like, to me, they're like, yes. But I couldn't. You know, it's just, I tried, but I couldn't. You know, even how I was writing the grant, you know. So I think that's a part of, I would say it's also a gift, you know, powerful gift. Because not every individual out there can do this work right? It's a gift, but also a ways of, you know how they say creator leadership comes from the creator.
Yes.
Right? It starts from when we are very young. You know, I'm fighting for my relative sisters. When someone bullies them at the world, they call me, right? So I go to
So
fight.
do you want to stay around but just mute, but stay around, please? Is that possible? Let's continue. Thank you, Mama Trans. Oh,
I'm here. Hello? Can you hear me?
yes, we hear you.
Because I have a scratching noise. Remember, it happened one other time, so I just didn't want to have that scratching for the audience.
Okay. All right. I hear you. I hear you. Sorry, Adebayo, you can continue, please.
Yeah. So like even I was saying growing up, right?
Mm.
These are my lens, you know, the lens of yeah, I'm fighting for my sisters. Don't touch my sister. Don't bully my sister. You know what I'm saying? My soccer teams, like the journey of me, I'm in teams, right? My
Yes.
sports is around teams,
Yeah.
around engagements. So it is very hard for me for like a friend to think I'm going to write something and I don't.
You don't talk about community.
And don't talk about community. That is hard, even if it is an individual grant. Even when I'm delivering it, I am going to include community. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
yeah. So there is this that part that we can't. It's how we are. It's
Yes.
who we are. It is
Yeah.
seen all aspects of our lives, of our engagements, even our social aspects, even mentally, right? 'Cause
Mm.
however much often the time we live I live by myself, right?
Mm.
But however much I live by myself, I actually don't because I have posters of my family on the wall. You know, I have posters of different places on the wall. That is a message of community. You know, that is not a message that I'm staying by myself.
Mm.
That is community. You know, when I look aside, I'm not by myself here. You know, I have different photos of different people on the wall that I look at. When it comes to the LGBTQ community, these are pieces when it comes to Uganda. And I think I did find more into community during the Pride events when I stood as Mr. Gay Pride in Uganda,
Mm.
right? Then I'm like, oh damn, this is a whole community here, you know? The
Mm.
people who like I'm part of.
The
Right?
people that you're part of, and that is very, very, very important, because somebody out there might think that when we talk community, it means you have to go and look for these 50 people, 600 people to be a part of. But sometimes your community is the person that you call every day to check on how they're doing. They check on you, and then it has your other gay baba who knows about your issues. You go and do your hair from there, and then it can just be about even two people, and that's your system, and that's your community, and that's where your power comes from, your safety comes from, your courage comes from, togetherness. So community is not just about those multitudes of people and us belonging to a group of people. Community, we can create it in our small situations. And I think it is this year's theme being the power of community. I think we should all find time to think about community and think about who we have in our circle, or who we can potentially have in our circle, in this particular thing that we are doing, so that we build communities and not walk alone, but walk in power and protest for those who can. Like I said, sometimes community is protest.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we should wind up now. And last message for everybody on International Day Against Homophobia and Transphobia, Intersex Phobia tomorrow, and all the phobias to our community.
I think a note that I really pick up through all of these messages that we hear is, even if we sometimes feel isolated or feel we are the lonely voice in there, keep on educating, keep on reaching out, keep on networking, because we are part of building our community, and it's that very same community that will support us when we are in need. So for me, that's my last final words. I think we have to actively keep on working on community, but that is what is carrying us through.
The power of community. Yes. Emalia or Chris? Emalia?
Okay, for me, maybe my last words for the community, and as we embrace and celebrate the theme, um, as it says, the power of the community. Let's, as I call myself a pioneer, and I really want to empower new members into the community, like
Mm,
see a lot of people engage into the community work, serving the community, and so on. So my my emphasis or my kind request is like, let's work with the community, let's engage with the community. This is not only the community, it's not only that it's a community, but these are siblings, these are relatives, these are friends, these are the people we love with, the people we sleep with, and so on. So let's embrace each other, let's love our community, let our community also love each other, and so on. So
a little glitch there, but that message was more or less received. A call to action. Let us embrace each other. Let's hold each other. Let us proceed as communities. All right, Chris.
Yes, my final submission
Yes.
is gonna differ a little bit, and it's going to, all people who put weight on individuals to take care of their communities, to their responsibilities to take care of, what their issues, challenges, and all that, right?
Mm,
So, my humble message is to everyone out there: know that. Other people are also facing similar issues that
mm,
perhaps they don't say, they don't have people to talk to like you have that chance to talk to them.
right.
They don't have anyone to reach out to often the time. So
Mm,
it is important to be intentional, to not put a lot of weight on individual, a weight of a whole community on
mm,
one person. So it is important to see those people as
mm,
human beings, as people too who need care, who need
mm,
love, who
mm,
need attention. Sometimes just reach out to be, man, I'm just thinking about you. I hope you're good. And that's enough.
mm.
So yeah, that's my message. And love
That's
yourself.
very important message.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Thank you.
Well, that's a call to all of us. A call from Emalia, from Chris, and from Lito. Community is good, but we have to be responsibility in working within our community. We have to be responsible, act responsible as we work with our communities in order to make those lasting relationships. But the encouragement is for you: go out there and find your community, put a brick on your community, attract your community, and let us live in peace and power and protest. That when I say it, sometimes in a different tone, because I don't want everybody to take that advice. But and protest for all those who can protest through their lives. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you so much for showing up, for tuning in this Friday, and happy IDAHOBIT tomorrow and for the rest of the year. What was that? What was that? Let me see. Awesome. All you transome people with the person who, for me, founded the word transome, Chris, here. Happy IDAHOBIT to everyone. And we'll be here again next Friday with yet another insightful episode around trans and intersex history in
Thank you.
Africa and the diaspora. Au revoir. Have a good weekend.
Bye
Thank
bye,
you.
everyone.
Mhm.